I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And I'm Dr. Redmond.
And we are back with 2 more episodes of Profiler. A show that, and I can't stress this part enough, which I think is pretty cool, has not forgotten its continuity in any way, shape, or form. Like, it's really doing a good job of continuing stories.
Yes.
Whether that story is, how do I put this? Bailey being a miserable person and a bad father.
Yep.
Right? Or, the ongoing stuff with Jack.
Well, I watched both of those episodes. And I'm going, obviously they have a script editor, or they have, a final editor, or
they got people in the writing room, to the extent that there is one, keeping a close eye on what's happened on the show.
Yes.
And I think that's great.
And they probably have someone designated as a researcher. So
it wouldn't shock me.
Because they obviously have unlimited money to do
it
things.
It does feel that way. When you see the giant crowds of people in these episodes.
And when you see that they're different, the different settings that they set up.
Oh,
and
my God.
No, they didn't have to. And
Exploding
they're
car
on site
this week.
Yeah, we have an exploding car.
We had a bunch of other things, they went all out.
Yeah, I wasn't as thrilled with the backstory or the secondary. Well, I don't know. I guess the primary story in number 2, but
we're going to talk about that. It's very interesting.
We will,
because every now and then, and again, you know me, I'm the one who will tell you that my catchphrase for wise guy is Albert Sirico did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And it's weird to watch an episode of television where you are 100% on the side of the villain.
Yeah.
Which I think I was in the second episode. I don't care. I don't care what, justification you think you have for these beliefs. FBI agents, you're on the wrong side of this. All moral people are on the other side of this. And again, what the reasonable, right? Okay, we'll save this till we're talking about the second episode.
Yes, let's wait till we talk about, because I will make one comment. I have the toughest part of my Jack is Coop is Jack. The toughest part, of course, is he's
obviously not Jack this week. Yeah.
It seems more obvious. Like I'm going, okay, so I guess I better put my bet down to maybe $4.
We've already locked it in, lady. You're not getting out of this one.
Okay, $5 it is.
Yeah, but no, the fact that Coop is knocked out on the floor of a hotel while we see Jack doing something else really does kind of.
Here's the point: is that and there is the issue, and that was the biggest part for me. Okay, to think about that. And then I'm going, but it was, they showed the face from the side, and I'm going,
I know.
But the hardest part for me is the orphanage, of course.
Yeah. How could he have been working at the orphanage all this time while also being an ATF agent?
Yeah.
Well, it really does kind of.
Yeah. When we find out that he's, and he's the gardener.
Yeah. He's been working as a gardener and caretaker at an orphanage.
Yes, so I'm sort of sitting, going.
I liked the theory. We talked about it last week, but I think I'm going to be proven right on this one sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Only because, and then I go, but I'm going to have to one would really have to stretch, because you'd have to argue that they weren't setting up these, they're setting these things up.
Yeah, they weren't meant to be actually taking place at the same time. is what you'd have to say.
Yeah, you'd have to say they weren't actually taking place at the same time.
And we don't know for a fact that they were, but it really does seem like they are.
That's, no, yeah, and that's it. Every time that I go, okay, so that's silhouette from the side, and, Jack's wearing glasses and stuff. Well, you can get over that. Coop can be wearing
well, no, glasses are a perfectly good disguise because people don't recognize people without glasses. Something that Clark Kent has proved for years by taking off his glasses and pretending to be Superman.
Yeah, and that's it. That's all it took.
Yeah.
So we know that. But it's the timing thing, and we never get a clear run as to how much time taking care of the orphanage takes.
You're absolutely right. So I'm going to defer. I'm not, because I thought I was going to come here and gloat. Because again, Coop literally gets knocked out. And is lying on the floor of a thing. And then we cut to what Jack's up to. So I thought I was just going to be gloating today.
But maybe that's just red herring stuff.
Yeah.
No, it is really, it's weird because I had the same feeling, oh shit, when I saw that silhouette first. But then by the time we get to the second episode, we've gone through these 2 episodes and they're setting it up so closely. I'm going, I don't know. After I give myself a couple of days to think about it. And then I start to,
I get it.
So we'll see. I
won't push back as hard as I thought I was going to. We will. My position.
I would push back.
Well,
I mean, I can understand it. No, I can understand it because now the particular thing is again. Well, I guess we'll get that when we get the second. Just remember, episode, I have a problem with the when they go into the shop, the nun. So
okay. So, first episode, we watch a drunk driver go and leave a bar absolutely sloshed to the point where he's having trouble getting into his car and weaving around the road.
And these are not the days where they're going, obviously Mad doesn't have as
been a big thing yet.
In the United States, or it doesn't have as much influence in the States as it does here.
This guy, oof. So he is obviously drunk.
The barman should have taken away his keys.
Absolutely. But this guy is obviously a drunk. He gets run off the road. He's confused in his car. And then somebody sets his car on fire and videotapes
Oh my God. Well, videotapes him driving.
Yeah, no, yeah, they do the whole thing. Essentially, they do the whole videotape of everything leading up to the fire as well. Almost as if he is building a case.
Yep.
Right, he does that, and then we find out that this guy has also murdered a rapist. And the thing that the 2 guys had in common is that both of them had been acquitted, right? Both of them had not been punished for their actions by the courts. And in case you're wondering, is this the same guy? Yes, he has sent edited versions of his crimes to the news, including his voiceover, talking about how the justice system has failed to convict.
Yes.
Yeah. And I gotta say, the show's doing a good job, and it's I'm not gonna have it. I mean, obviously, I don't like the idea of anybody being burned alive, but a drunk driver who killed a family, and then just kept drunk driving, did not turn that as an object lesson. Yeah, somebody takes him out, I'm not gonna complain. I'm on record as saying any rapist deserves to die, so, I'm not gonna complain about that either. The show's doing a good job of getting me on Julian McMahon's side, which is he really doesn't care that much. And in fact,
that's exactly what it says. I wouldn't do it myself.
But
if somebody's going to take these guys off the street, what do I care?
By comparison, right? We've got in fact, that's the theme of all of the cops.
Yeah.
Later, the guy, the drug dealer gets killed. Right? The drug user and dealer gets killed. And they go to the alley where it happened. And it's the cop is why are you wasting my time with this?
Yeah.
Very clear-eyed view of the cops this show sometimes. This is not a real crime. These are not real people who are dying, is the cops' point of view.
Yeah.
They're
These
not
guys
citizens.
should be
So it
behind
doesn't matter.
bars.
Exactly. So if somebody kills
that's
them, who
basically,
cares?
yeah.
Yeah, like if you wonder why Chicago has only a 35% homicide clearance rate, it's because when a gang member shoots another gang member, the cops don't investigate it.
Yeah.
They don't bother. But yes, there's a whole show about it. It's called The Wire.
You should.
But anyway.
But that's Baltimore, though.
But that's Baltimore. No,
it's
but I'm just
same.
saying, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the phenomenon, not the specific city.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. And there's any number of reasons why they don't investigate it, but that's a whole other conversation. So this guy, they, I gotta say, kind of a like plausible win for profiling, I would say, because everything about the guy is like like he's obsessed with justice, and they quite reasonably profile this could be a cop, this could be a DA, right? This could be a judge. Yeah. They are right in. He's using legal terminology. He's talking about the people justice hasn't gotten to, and they're like former cop, former judge, former DA. These are the three things that is most likely
that you can do.
Yeah, that is most likely for him to be. And so they figure, and of course it's all happening in New York State, so he's definitely a local, right?
Yeah.
Actually, did it go all the way to Boston? I don't remember.
No, they went to Albany.
Albany, that's as far as they went.
Yeah, they went north.
Yeah.
Well, they went to, anyway, but they were all in New York State.
Yeah, they're all in New York State, yes.
Yeah.
So they know it's related. This guy definitely going to be his home ground. And but the one thing the FBI is doing is they're telling the news organizations not to run the videos. And I'm like, gotta say, these are some pretty ethical news organizations on this show. Because from what I've learned from the movie Nightcrawler and that one terrible episode of Criminal Minds based on the movie Nightcrawler, the media should be like desperate to show this stuff, right?
Yes, I agree.
But like every news organization is like, no, it's fine. We'll hand these tapes over to the FBI, not make our own copies, and not air this news. And this pisses the guy off. And so he announces, okay. And literally, like, my favorite line in the episode is, we're lucky that he doesn't have any other way to get his message out. And I'm like, oh my God. Are you not familiar with the internet?
This is still the 90s.
It's 96. There was the internet. Yeah, it wasn't easy to put a streaming video on there, but dude could put there were message boards where he could be putting out like still photos and descriptions of his kills. No problem.
Yes, but what I would say, well, I wouldn't say no problem, but yes, it could be done, and it would have been slow, and it would have been everything else.
Yeah.
But he may not. I mean, when we finally meet the killer.
Yeah, he's not.
He may not have.
Expert.
He may not be technically savvy. He can run his recorder and things.
And he can edit his videos, but
they're VHS tapes, for heaven's sakes.
And he's doing simple editing, so you're right.
Yeah. So he may just not.
But it's so weird in this day and age to be the only way for a murderer to get his videotapes out is by sending them to the news.
But that was, it
was the 90s. I get it. I completely get it. So he decides to escalate and says, this woman is, shows them a picture of a woman at a running track and says, this woman is the real villain, right? Is the worst of all of them. So I'm going to kill her unless you get my message out. And of course they continue not wanting to get the message out. And here is where, I gotta say, the show did a very good job. So remember when John Grease, our beloved Brutes from The Pretender, was on Criminal Minds and he played the vigilante?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they had to do such a contrived thing to try and not get the audience be on this guy's side. Where, like, the idea that he would not know who the person he was going to kill looked like and had done no work whatsoever to prepare, to the point, and they're like, oh no, you accidentally killed the guy's brother because you walked up to the door and said, are you Mr. Stevenson?
Instead of
like Bill Stevenson, like anyone would ask. And the guy would say, no, that's my brother. And he would say, oh, okay, fine. Where does your brother live now? Oh, we moved to Hawaii. Okay, thanks. Because that's what really would have happened in that situation. And so the solution they came up with was having John Grease say, are you Mr. Stevenson? A lot of Mr. Stevensons in the world there, buddy. The justification they had to get you off of his side, I gotta say, is a lot less contrived.
Okay.
Because the woman that he's going to kill this time is a juror who let one of these people off.
Yeah.
So there you go. I think that's a big improvement. Because now the audience has to say, okay, well, I think we were kind of okay with him murdering rapists.
Yeah.
Right? I think we were kind of okay with him murdering this drunk driver who was completely unrepentant about his crimes and literally like continued drunk driving. Right? But if we're killing people on juries who pointedly acquitted a woman who's, who killed her husband because he was a monstrous abuser. Ooh.
Well, in this, particularly in this day and age, right?
Exactly.
Because that would be, it is more difficult because I think that they're still going, but yes, she still then went and killed somebody and of course he's pissed off because that's what
got him disbarred.
Yeah.
Yeah. His unprofessional protests over this specific woman hanging the jury, because the other 11 people wanted to convict and she would not vote to convict no matter what. Right. And it hung the jury and he reacted really badly and unprofessionally. And that's what got him disbarred. Right. Yeah. That was the trigger causing all of this. And so you're like, oh, so really you've got more of a problem with this woman than the concept of justice being unfulfilled. Oh, okay, this, you make more sense as a character now. I get it. I get where you're coming from. You're obsessed with control and this.
There was a personal,
there's a personal
aspect to this.
And it's nice because they're able to, by listening to there's another good scene where they do the linguistic profiling. He uses such specifically odd turns of phrase. They're able to match them to the writings of one specific law professor.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, who's the craziest guy in your class?
Yeah.
Do you remember someone super funny. Crazy? And and again, the nice note is like, he's a law professor, but he's like, an old school, like not a modern libertarian, which is just like a crazy Ayn Rand person, but like an actual libertarian who's just like, I don't feel great about working with the FBI.
I don't want to work with you guys,
but I'm also not going to sign off on someone murdering people. Like, we have a justice system for a reason, and I'm not going to sign off on vigilantism either. So, I just, again, nice side characters this week. I really enjoyed that. So that was a very nice touch. And so they're able to identify who the guy is. Right. Yep. And they're able to identify that this woman that in the video, by going to all of the running tracks they can find, they're able to go to the woman in the video and say she's a famous runner, right? Who almost made the Olympics, but, was still very successful. And here's the interesting thing. They catch him, right? They go to his house and he's not surprised at all. He did not expect to get to keep on doing this. What he
said was, what took you so long?
I know, because this was always his endgame. He had no plans to kill anyone after her. He knew that he was going to get caught after her because unlike the other 3 victims, he had a motive to kill her. He had a personal connection to her, and he knew he was going to get caught. And so then we have Sam's completely reasonable. I liked this profile. that like, because they had already been to her house and found blood where he kidnapped her from when they had a fight, but there's no body, and he's like, she might still be alive, and I honestly, and so she's like, okay, well, every other victim has died in a place related to the crimes. So the drug dealer was killed in the same alley he worked out of. The guy was burned alive. The drunk driver was burned alive in his car. The rapist was tied to a bed the same way he did to his victims. Yeah. And so this woman's crime is causing a jury to hang. So she's going to be at the courthouse. And this is my favorite part of the episode, honestly. He's going to hang her because she caused a hung jury. So he must necessarily want to hang her. And I'm like, fine, okay. Like, that's so much more literal than I think you can really justify. But I found it really funny. It made me very happy that she jumps to that conclusion and is right about it.
Well, she has to be right.
No, she has to be right about it. That's the show.
Yeah.
There's no show if she's not right about it, but I just found it very funny. So they rush to the room. They rush to the courthouse where the trial happened. They find her in the jury room, deliberation room. And I don't 100% understand the setup he's got her in.
No. Well, I
think weird. The idea was, okay, so there was a noose rigged. He hasn't just killed her because they need the characters to be able to rescue her. Logically, he should have just hanged her in the jury room. But I mean, they need the jury to be able to rescue her. The jury. Oh my God. They need the team to be able to rescue the juror, is what I'm trying to say. So laboriously, and I apologize for that. But so the way they've done it is, so she's lying on her back in a chair with a noose around her neck. And the noose seems to be, like, the chair is tied to a bookcase that's holding the noose. And as long as she's lying down on the bookcase, it keeps on the chair, on her back, it keeps the rope taut and the bookcase doesn't fall, because if the bookcase falls, it's going to lift her up by the noose and hang her.
Yes.
And I guess his logic is she can't lie there in the chair indefinitely. Eventually she will have to move and then she'll hang. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but this courthouse is a public building. And yeah, it's the weekend, but she only lasts 2 days. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that I could successfully lie still in a chair for 2 days, but if the other option was dying, dive by hanging, I mean, I'd make a fair go of it. I think I'd have a pretty good shot.
Yeah, but I also don't understand why. Like, we don't get a good enough explanation of why. I don't think he would do this.
Yeah, rather than just kill her. It's a completely contrived thing to give them a chance to save her. And I mean, we're watching the writers trying to figure out, like, they've gotten most of the way through the story. And when they got to the part of, okay, but if that's the case, how do they save her? And they don't just want it to be, well, they get to the courthouse in time as he's setting up the noose. They want to do the scene where he's gloating, right? But then they can't figure out the other part of, well, why wouldn't she just be dead already? So they come up with this Rube Goldberg series of contrivances that really just doesn't make any sense at all.
Don't make much sense.
No, it's a problem. So in the other half of the episode, we have 3 people to check in on. 1, Bailey's out on a date when we first see him. And, like... Useless? A lot of self-pitying chatter, you know?
As she said, and I mean, I liked the way they wrote the woman.
Oh, completely.
You know, she's just going, I thought you went to prostitutes for that. Well, I don't pay anybody. I don't go to prostitutes.
But I just loved her response, and it's like, if you want someone to have sex with and then talk about your problems, hire a prostitute. I'm like, yes! Oh, this lady is my hero.
I know, it was such a good line.
You know, We're going out on a date here. I'm not your therapist. Sex therapist is called a prostitute. Go hire one. Oh my God. I loved it. I loved it. But then he apologized and we found out that he's got real problems with his daughter, which again, well done thing in the show, setting up what the next week's episode is going to be about.
Yeah.
So again, good show from the episode, setting up what next week is going to show up by introducing, because we know he's, he's divorced. And we know he's divorced. We know he's got 2 daughters. And he doesn't see them as much as he would like, or really, I mean, I think he's actually kind of fine with not, being responsible for his kids. Is my suspicion, but that's...
Well, he persuades himself that he cares, but that's honestly, his behavior is such that there is a reason why his daughter is getting his attention this way.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get there. All right, second story. Roma Mafia, the character is 42 years old and she's miraculously pregnant. She's previously talked about how she and her husband just love their poodles. And we actually see one of their poodles this week. And it is very lovable.
Adorable.
Oh my God, that was such a cute dog. I was so happy to see that dog. But yes, she's previously talked about that. And now she's actually pregnant, as they say. Like, it's one of these things that just happens, and that's true. Yeah. Sometimes it just happens. And so they're going to so she's going to be pregnant. And so that's going to be a stressor going into the end of the season and next year. I'll be interested to see where that goes. Third, Sam goes to see the head nun to ask about what Jack was like when he was there. And she tells him that Jack, kept beautiful roses. And so now we find out that all of the rose petals he's been sending, he grew himself in his side job at the orphanage, which is a nice touch.
Yes. And then the other thing is that she figures out that there's that he had a smell about him.
Yeah, he had a smell about him.
Yes, a very pleasant smell.
A very pleasant smell about him. And of course, Sam has decided to make sure there are FBI agents around the orphanage, just in case Jack comes back, which is completely reasonable. But that, of course, makes the kids a little nervous because, there's men in suits just kind of standing around being creepy, which, I completely understand that.
No, and very nice scene between the nun
and Sam. Yeah, really liked that. So that is what Jack and company are up to. Now we get the second episode where, again, Guy, if anything, Guy did nothing wrong. Just 100% on his side. No notes. We'll talk about that as we go. So we open with a Die Hard happening.
Yes.
Right? It's the only way to describe it. A Die Hard is happening. A bunch of guys are showing up at a place and, kitting out and then locking up people and replace it, as people are preparing to serve the food at this event that's happening. A bunch of guys rush in and they tie everybody up and they raid the place and come in with assault rifles. We're watching a Die Hard. We've all seen this. We're familiar with the concept. I loved it.
Oh yes, it was, as you say, it was a Die Hard.
They were doing a Die Hard.
I loved it. And
made me really happy.
As you see them walking in. Now sometimes I go, well, why was I complaining about the show? It's gotten pretty
good. It's solid. I'm just saying. Yes. It's gotten pretty solid. Right.
Yeah, I would say so. Mind you, I wonder how many other people they lost. Mm-hmm. Like they lost me. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, early in the show.
Yeah.
So now here's a fun question that I have for you.
Okay.
All right. Did you recognize the lead mercenary working for the head of the Hans Gruber of the story, the head of the Die Hard people? Did you recognize the lead mercenary?
No.
Oh my God, I thought you would. He doesn't really have any lines and he never gets a close-up, so I understand.
I don't even know which one. Well,
just the guy standing behind him with the assault rifle the whole time with gray hair.
Oh, I'd have to go look at it. Maybe if
That's
I
fine.
looked at it
No,
again more
it's
seriously.
fine. I'm just going to tell you. A year after this, he would be in the movie Fight Club as the guy in the Halo neck brace. But we know him best as the guy that Hotch and Reed are going into interview when Hotch decides he wants to beat a man to death. Yep, that's him. And Reed talks them out of the situation by explaining the guy never had a chance. One of our favorite scenes from the entire show.
Yes.
That's him. Yeah, that's him.
Oh, isn't that
Yeah,
fascinating?
just a nice little touch. So that's our first crossover from Profiler to Criminal Minds. And given how many working actors are in Criminal Minds, wouldn't be surprised if we see a few more in the next 3 years of Profiler.
Yeah.
And we may have already had one and we just didn't recognize him. But this is one like famously notable actor. All right. So the guy shows up and he has a very specific demand, which is, and when I tell you this demand, you are going to be shocked by how reasonable it is, everybody. His demand is he wants the United States government to announce.
That's all.
Announce the locations of all of its nuclear weapons, A, and B, commit that it will never use a nuclear first strike. That it will never be the first one to fire a nuclear weapon. Which, by the way, Russia had done. America was the only country refusing to say. Because at this point, here are the countries that had nukes at this point. America, England. They were in the process of removing the old Soviet Union's ones. So Russia, France. That's it. I mean, Israel technically did have nukes, but, nobody knew it and they didn't announce it. Yeah. But that's it. And so Russia had said, we will not do a first strike. We consider the concept of a nuclear first strike immoral, and we won't do it. Now, we can debate whether they meant that, and Putin has said he doesn't agree with that anymore, but at this point, even they had said they were willing to have that restriction on their arsenal, that the nuke would only ever be a defensive weapon after one was used on them. And America refused to do the same thing. So literally all this guy is asking for is a commitment to not
start a nuclear
war and to reveal how many and where all your nukes are. That's it. Right?
Yep.
I gotta say, very reasonable requests.
I thought so.
And the backstory is that he is a nuclear scientist who had built nukes for the U.S. government and gotten religion about it and realized how immoral his life's work had been.
Yes, after his daughter died of cancer. His granddaughter
died of cancer, and he got religion about it, and he's like, oh my God, how can we do this to future generations?
Yes. How could I have ever done this?
Yeah. And how can we torture the future by leaving them these weapons?
Yeah.
Because he knows he's not long for the world, and he doesn't want to, die leaving the world in the mess he made. So, really, one of the most moral villains we've ever had in one of these shows.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, there are others that are come close, but no, never. This is very clear cut.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what he's doing. They don't kill anybody.
No. In fact, he had only planned to kill 3 people.
Yes.
A bunch of people get injured, but he had a very concrete plan to kill 3 people, which were his brother, the head of the evil corporation, who is spreading nuclear weapons all around the world, and the government officer who is signing off on it.
Yeah.
That's all he wanted to do. And his brother is the nuclear scientist that this corporation was sending all over the world to, give Libya reactors.
Yeah.
And and I think we can say, probably at the behest of the CIA, but,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so. And it was an interesting thing, the problem with his brother, right?
Yeah.
Because he and his brother had been basically in this business together.
Yes.
They were both nuclear scientists, and
he's the one who traveled the world to sell nuclear secrets to North Korea and all of this. And
Although,
you're like,
and I'm sure that technically he had quit and then went freelance, is what he says.
he says that, but here's the thing.
We don't believe it.
You don't believe it simply because A, the government hasn't put him under arrest, even though he's back in America.
Yeah.
And in fact, the government is actively protecting him from Libyan hit squads.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure all that shady stuff you were doing was for the CIA / the military industrial complex, personified in the general and the CEO who you're comfortable hanging out with.
Like, it's really interesting that he doesn't use the term military industrial complex.
No, he doesn't say it that clearly, but that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, that's
very clear.
If
That's
you know
what he's talking
anything about the 50s.
Yeah,
you'll understand that was Dwight D. Eisenhower's final speech.
And given that this character's age, like, that's when he would have been becoming a nuclear physicist. Right when that speech happened and right when all this started. Like, it's like they've timed it out perfectly, basically. Yeah. Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex, and that essentially war would become a self-perpetuating endeavor. And you have to guard against it, and then America didn't, and that's why we are where we are today. But it was not different from the Smedley Butler speech, except that, it wasn't as honest. Like, Dwight D. Eisenhower wasn't as honest as Smedley Butler was, and just said, no, we're the mob. We're just the mob, guys. We can pretend we're not the mob, but we're just the mob. I kill people because the United Fruit Company wants me to kill people. Because it hurts the United Fruit Company's profits. And Dwight D. Eisenhower wasn't willing to go that far, and that's why, people, instead of just being as clear-eyed... Imagine if an American president had given the war is a racket speech. Instead of it just being a general who they tried to recruit to do a coup on America and turn America fascist. Because that's the thing. I like the military-industrial complex speech, but he doesn't say the quiet part loud, which is capitalism is the problem. Allowing money into all of this stuff is the problem.
Well,
because money exists only to make more money. And if you allow people to make money via war, the people who make money via war are going to ensure that it's always making more money. The end. Yeah. Like, it's a self-perpetuating machine. No one has to want to do this. Money makes more money. That's what money's for.
Oh, yes. And here's another thing, right? Like, apparently Mexico is as upset with Trump's presidency as we are.
Yeah.
Of course. But apparently, I guess she had the new president did have a conversation with Trump.
Right.
From one of my Mexican students who happens to have been in Mexico for the last little while.
Oh, nice.
And came back. And, but he said, yeah. And he pointed out, like, she apparently what she said to him, I guess this made the news too here somewhat. But she basically said, we're not the problem with the drugs. It's the United States.
It's demand. Demand is
demand. Demand is the issue. And then she said, and if you want us to stop our drugs going across the border, then you got to stop the guns from coming into Mexico.
What?
Yeah, she told him. And then, of course, Trump's response was, oh, well, we don't send guns to Mexico.
Is he the dumbest man in the... Oh, wait, he is the dumbest man in the world. Spoiler alert. The Colt Armaments Corporation, 60% of its sales annually are to, like, 5 guys who live in Laredo. And every single gun, literally 60% of the guns the Colt Armaments Corporation sells just go right across the border to Mexican drug cartels. It's most of the money they make. And they're not the only company who's making this kind of money off the Mexican drug cartels and the Central American gangs. Like, it is insane, the kind of money. Well, we don't export the guns. No, you just send a couple 100,000 guns a year to 2 gun shops in Laredo, Texas. and don't ask what happens to them after that, because according to the US government, you don't have to keep records of what happens to guns. Don't give me this. I'm sorry. I get real mad when I hear about, because it's like, Mexico bans guns, yet there's assault rifles everywhere. Yeah, because it's kind of hard to ban guns when you live next to America. Mexico doesn't make any guns. Where do you think they're coming from? You frigging moron. Anyway, in good news, Bolsonaro's in jail and he's going to stay there for the rest of his life, maybe get the death penalty.
Really?
Yeah. The guy who he was working with to, like, assassinate Lula? Like, that's right. He was on him.
Yes. Yeah. No, really?
Yeah, the guys who were part of his assassination gang got flipped on him. So he's probably going to die in jail for trying to do all these political assassinations that they weren't able to pull off. So, yeah. I mean, one of them they did pull off. An incredibly popular socialist mayor did get murdered. Mm-hmm. And, like, all of these convictions are coming after 10 years of that. In case you're wondering why we're getting so political suddenly, it's because the episode did. That's what's got our head in this place.
We're trying to avoid politics these days.
But it's an episode about, nuclear disarmament. A 100% moral act.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be a bad thing.
And look where we are 25 years later.
Yeah, here we are 25 years later, almost 30 years later. And it's just more important than ever that we need to get rid of nuclear weapons. There is no reason, there is no justification to have them. They have no use case. As this guy says, we spend billions of dollars a year maintaining our nuclear weapons stockpile while children starve and schools fall apart. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. That's just a fact. Like, there's no way you can argue this point. There is no argument on the other side of this issue. They just refuse to not have nuclear weapons because they want to have nuclear weapons, because they want people to be scared of what they might do if a crazy man got in charge of the country. Well, guess what? A crazy man is in charge of the country, and he wanted to nuke a hurricane.
Yeah.
So, good work, the military-industrial complex.
Yeah. And then the other crazy man is, well, he's less crazy.
Yeah.
He's more psychopathic and
he's psychopathic.
Very calculated.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Because he knows what would happen if he actually used a nuke. It would not go well for him. Oh.
Well, no, not only would it not go well for him, the world is basically there is something called the westerly winds.
Yeah.
So that means even if you used a nuke in Ukraine, it would all blow into Russia.
Yeah, it would irradiate the entire population of the western border of Russia, maybe going all the way to Moscow. Like, it's an insane idea.
It's an insane idea because you're condemning your own people. I mean,
you can only use nukes on a country east of you. That's just the rule. It's just a fact.
Because it's because
of the way the world turns. It's as simple as that.
Yes, it's what I was, but what I'm thinking about is we go back to the 50s and the early 60s, and when they stopped above ground testing. But by then there was strontium in the milk, for example, and you could actually this is one of these cancer producing
drugs. Radiation chemicals.
Yes. And if it gets in, for example, the milk, and this is leukemia, for example, is what everybody got. Mm-hmm. But it moved. But I mean, even in the eastern part of the United States and in the northern part and the eastern part of Canada, we had strontium in the milk. Now it was a lot less.
But the fact is, it's all because they went, where should we do these nuclear tests? At the westernmost part of the United States. So the winds could carry this stuff as far across the country as possible. The hell were they thinking?
Well, they weren't.
No, they weren't. You're right. It's as simple as that.
They just used the entire population
as guinea pigs for what
as
would
guinea
be the
pigs.
result. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so Sam goes up and essentially she wants to profile him and say, is this guy actually going to kill people if he doesn't get what he wants? Right. And so she volunteers to go in and talk to him, and they agree to let her come in and talk to him for 10 minutes so she can testify to the government whether he's serious or not. Right. And it seems reasonable, but she demands to come in with a medic to check on the condition of the hostages. And of course she brings Coop in as the medic, which is smart. So they go in, she has a conversation with him. This is where we get, the whole spiel about America wasting its money on all nukes and it being, an immoral thing to do. And the guy being objectively right about everything he says. Meanwhile, Coop says that about 20 people, are wounded enough that they need medical intervention immediately. And he's like, sure, take him and take 25 other people. What do I care? I don't.
Yeah.
The fewer hostages I have, the easier it is to control. I'm definitely going to keep the important people, i.e. all of the,
upper echelons.
Yeah, the upper echelons, specifically this
In the
CEO,
military.
this military guy, and I'm going to keep Sam. And he doesn't say this is the reason, but the reason is because that means the FBI is less likely to shoot me when I walk out the door. If I've got Sam there, it's going to make them marginally less likely to shoot me. Which, you know what? That's a nice touch.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Sam has a safe word.
Yep, Sam has a safe word, and he immediately is like, wait, what is your safe word? To come and have them come and shoot me. He knows.
Yep.
But he also has, because Coop refuses to leave without her, because he said the deal was we both get to leave. They knock him out and just send him out with the rest of the people on a stretcher. But he reports that they have a signal jammer, meaning that Sam isn't going to be able to give the code word.
Yeah.
Like, once they turn on the signal jammer, which they could do at any point, they won't know when to come in. And so they're like, oh, we've got to bust in then. And so they do. They bust in figuring they can rescue the place. But as they do, they go out all of the quote unquote terrorists go out the side door, dragging the most important hostages and Sam with them, get in a car, drive off, not worrying about being followed, right?
No?
No, not particularly worried about being followed. And they bring them to the airport. And this is where he makes his deal, which is, okay, I will let them go, I will let my hostages go, but I'll only surrender to my brother.
Yeah.
If you can bring my brother here. And of course,
That's when we find out that he's in hiding from Libyan terrorists.
From screwing them over on a nuclear deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't working for the CIA. Come on. Of course he was working for the CIA. But anyway, in another great moment, we have a scene where they have to drag the brother out, and Sam looks him over, and she's like, oh. She realizes the reason he kept me in there was so that he could make a clean getaway because they wouldn't risk shooting an FBI agent. The reason he had the guys, like the two most important guys, stationed next to the back door is so he could realistically grab them while they were on their way out under fire. All of this has been a plan to get the three people he most blames for the state of, everything that has happened to the world in the same place at the same time so he can kill all of them. Mm-hmm. And she figures it out and she signals them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily, I say luckily, these aren't great guys. The FBI is able to...
To our great chagrin,
he fails to murder the people propagating nuclear weapons throughout the world.
But he has to know that the military-industrial complex is just going to replace them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And can we talk for a second again? And I don't want to oversell this, but like how objectively right he is about everything. He just is. He's just correct about everything. And he's not even asking for anything unreasonable.
Nope.
He's asking for the American government to announce that it won't start World War III.
War III. That's all he wants.
Is that such a bad thing?
Yeah, that was the great line when Bailey goes to do the negotiation. He says, Bailey says, yes, we have the president. And he's talking blah, 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 blah. And the guy says, no, we have our connections. No, he's not. He's still sitting in his golf cart. So.
Yes. Don't lie to me. And of course,
Don't lie to me, Bailey.
He worked there forever,
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that the U.S. the government is not taking this seriously, or at least as seriously as they should, because they're not giving up their trump card. They're not giving up their nuclear weapons because they like the idea of people being scared of them because it's a corrosive empire. Oh my God. But it's just like, so, are you familiar with the piece of fiction that this is, that is loosely based on?
No.
Okay. There's this amazing TV movie that I'm going to recommend that everyone listening to this check out. You can watch it for free on YouTube right now. It's just on YouTube because it's a TV movie. It's called Special Report.
Oh, I never saw it.
Oh, okay. Well, watch it today. So the premise is, the entire thing is shot as if it is a TV news broadcast. So you're watching a TV news broadcast, the national nightly news, blah, 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 right? Of one of the 3 networks. Of course, it's a fake network, even though I think it aired on ABC. It would be nice if they had gone the full Ghost Watch and had the actual ABC News anchors doing this and playing themselves. But,
yeah,
America doesn't have the guts of the BBC or Channel 4 or whoever did Ghost Watch. The point is, so they're doing a report from Savannah, Georgia, right? About I think it's like like some kind of crime had happened at the docks and it was a major news story. And while they're down there, they see a bunch of guys with guns come up to a boat chased by the military, and the camera crew gets grabbed to use as hostages. And we find out that a bunch of radical anti-nuclear people have built their own nuclear weapon, right? And put it in a boat in the Savannah harbor. And
I may have seen this.
You may have seen it. And they say, if you have 24 hours to disarm, because there's a nuclear launch facility like 500 miles away. And they're like, to disarm all of the nukes at that station and bring us, essentially, there's a go key inside of every nuke. And if you take that key out, the nuke can't function. They have to be turnkey disableable, right? Yep. And he's like, turn all the keys, bring us the keys, and then we will hand over the nuke. And his belief is that if America unilaterally turns off 500 of its nukes, just does it, then this will it will jumpstart disarmament. And he's like, there's no reason not to do it. America still has 5,000 other nuclear weapons. But if you do this, we can actually make disarmament a major conversation. Right? We can make disarmament the thing that people are talking about. And there's a good chance we can get this going. Right? And so all you have to do is that. And it's entirely handled like an actual news broadcast. So we cut back to the anchors, the people investigating this, back to the thing from the boat, interviewing, finding out, using news connections to find out about the people who are in the quote unquote terrorist group. One of them is David Rasche from, of course, Sledgehammer. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. And I'm not going to say what happens because I want people to watch this, but it is unbelievably good. And this is basically the same story, except this guy doesn't do nuclear terrorism. He is he is a much more reasonable man. But yeah, it's a fantastic movie. It's called Special Report. You can watch it right now. And fun fact, it's Marshall Hershkovitz and Ed Zwick who made it, who would, of course, go on to create 30-something a year or two later. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, same guys. But yeah, I adore this movie. Watched it, and that's what this was, if not clearly based on, definitely inspired by, now that you've heard the story. Obviously, It's also a Die Hard. We can also identify that it was a Die Hard.
Yes. Die Hard is
a template that people love.
Yeah, including us.
Oh, very much so. No, we love it when TV shows do a Die Hard. We liked it when Criminal Minds did a Die Hard, even though it didn't have the best ending.
No.
We still liked that they did a Die Hard.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's talk about the other character stuff this week, which, do you know what I noticed this week that I had never noticed before in the opening credits?
What?
In the opening credits, like not the opening credits for the show with the titles, but like the who's in this week's episode.
Yeah.
Among the people who are in this week's episode, the last name listed is Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I kind of hope A. Martinez isn't Jack, because that would mean the actor playing Jack agreed to not be listed in the credits and only be listed as Jack until the reveal, specifically to protect the mystery for the audience. And I just think that's an unbelievably cool thing to have happen.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. We'd have to go back and look at all of the other
and
ones
see
to
if
Jack was there all the time.
In the credits.
Because I did notice it this time in the credits.
I think this might be the first time it happened. I feel like I might have noticed, but then again, maybe we just didn't notice it before. It's just such a weird thing to have happen.
Yep.
So yeah, I thought that was nice. So let's talk about the Jack story.
Well,
so they talked about his smell last week. And so this poor nun gets it into her head.
Well, no, what happens is she's off with her guard.
Yeah.
She's got an FBI agent as a guard doing shopping.
Yeah.
And they happen to see a scent store.
Yes.
Right? And so she goes,
she gets it into her head to think, oh, well, maybe I'll look into this whole Jack situation. Maybe I can help out.
Yes, that's what she's thinking. Maybe I'll help out. And
in an unbelievably unfortunate coincidence for her, but this is what great fiction is made out of, she goes into the store literally 5 minutes after Jack had walked in to buy something.
Yeah.
And we see him on the phone talking to somebody. So again, just living his life, doing his stuff. While he's on the phone. All right. While he's out running his errands. But he sees her.
And
also,
he's not wearing.
He's not wearing the cowboy outfit or whatever outfit he did when he wore when he worked there. Right?
Yes. He was always Carruthers. And
yeah. Although I will say one thing that disappointed me about the nun thing is they didn't put her together with a sketch artist, and we don't have a sketch of what his disguise looked like while he was Carruthers.
Yes, that was weird. I always thought that, and it was weird. That. Yeah, I don't know why, and it's also weird. Why did this nun get? How did this nun get? Because of course Jack sees her.
Yep, sees her immediately.
And then I guess he takes pictures of her.
Oh yeah.
Or he's watching.
He's watching.
And so he knows that she has made a connection.
Yeah. Because this is the scent. Well, the problem is it's a custom scent he has, and this is the place he gets it. But it's not like she just walks in and buys something. She walks in and makes the show of like smelling all the ingredients. And so he can figure out that what she's trying to do is figure out if this is the place where he buys his cologne, or has his cologne made essentially, effectively for him. And he's like, oh my God, she knows something about me. She can connect this to me. So yeah, the nun gets herself killed.
Yes.
Because Jack, as bad a guy as he is, was clearly willing to let the nuns alone.
Mm-hmm.
He was fine just dropping the hammer on that part of his life. He burns down that part of his life and he moves on. But the nun wouldn't let it go. And I feel so sorry for her because there's a fire. There's a fire in the place because while Sam is off doing the whole thing, the nun calls and, to say, I've figured something out.
Yeah.
But Sam isn't there, so she leaves a message. Jack goes, and of course nobody knows this orphanage better than him because he installed like a giant metal door acid trap in the place. Obviously, he knows this place pretty well, and as a handyman, he was in a position to generate secret entrances and exits, which of course he would, because he needs to, if anyone ever came for him, he would need to leave without a trace. That just makes perfect sense. Like, so him being able to set a fire to distract everybody and then walk in and out completely unseen is like the most believable part of the episode. Like, of course he could. And he kills the nun, and then when Sam calls, Jack's the one who answers the phone. But this all ties into something that I wanted to say really interesting, that it's major that he killed the nun because it ties into something that happened earlier in the episode. We see Jack watching the news of Sam being held hostage and praying that she's okay. And I'm sure this isn't going to be a major lead, but like, I think he went to work at the orphanage because he's actually a Catholic. I think that's why that was his cover. Because it was easy for him to fit in there, because Jack is actually a Catholic.
Well, yeah, that goes without saying. So is A. Martinez.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
So is Coop.
So is Coop. You're absolutely right. I just think it's interesting that we saw Jack praying for Sam's health. Right?
Yes.
We did. We saw him praying for her safety when she had been kidnapped. So I think it's just worth mentioning, between that and the working at the orphanage, he's probably a legit Catholic. And yes, obviously Coop is as well. I'm not saying Coop isn't. I'm just saying on our big board. I think
Sam is too, and so
probably.
Is
well,
Bailey.
we know Bailey is. Oh my God. Dude, singing opera in the shower. Of course he's a Catholic. In this term, Catholic is code for Italian. But anyway. I know.
It's too funny.
It is funny. It really is.
But no, yes, there he is, and you see him,
Yeah, we see him praying.
It is, yes, because he doesn't want anything to happen to Sam.
Yeah, he doesn't want anything to happen. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And yes, we'll see where that goes next week.
Yes, all of this, yes. And I'm sure it has to be. Yes, I can see all of the holes in my last week.
But we're not.
Clearly, but we're not going to talk about that because I still...
It's not off the table.
No, and the thing is, the thing I found about killing the nun, right?
Yeah.
Is that the FBI fell down on the job.
They really did.
Okay, I mean, that's what's
it's weird for us to say, this really isn't on the serial killer. But to a certain extent, it's not on the serial killer.
They really fell down on their job.
Yeah. The minute she thought she had a lead on Jack, ask her why she's sniffing things. Engage with her. Don't, try and figure out. And then guard her more effectively.
And then because they figured out the scent. Who was like, they knew from this guy what the scent was, like what the mixture was.
Yep. And they
that
could
Jack
use
was
that,
wearing.
And they could maybe use that to figure out who bought it. Exactly. And that's what she was going to tell Sam, and Sam was going to look it up, but no.
No. So we get missed phone calls, I mean, that part of it, I think that setting the fire and getting in and the rest of it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. And
that
I don't
works.
have any problem. That part of it works. The part of it that doesn't work for me is that the FBI is just falling down on the job.
It is. But at the same time, how do I put this? I feel like maybe they don't put their best and brightest FBI agents on the job of babysitting people. Just putting that out there.
Yes, I know, but this is supposed to be a special task force.
It is.
And Jack lived there.
Yeah, he did.
It's just like he interacted not just with the one nun,
with all the
nuns.
With
all the other nuns. Yeah. He interacted with the children.
Yep.
He had to as the janitor, as the whatever, custodian.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, they should be delving much more
over
deeply.
this. orphanage.
They should be absolutely crawling over this orphanage.
That's it. And the FBI agent that was with her when she went into the store, because she was standing with her.
Oh, yeah.
In the store. And then, it just is.
I know. It's frustrating. I'm not going to disagree with you. It is frustrating.
Very frustrating.
Anything that, any media that, how shall I put this? Portrays the FBI as incompetent isn't something I'm going to say is unbelievable, because it is the FBI. They're not great at their job, famously. But I will say that you're right, that I feel like it should have been a higher priority to find out what these nuns knew. Because all they had was Sam going to see her. All they had was Sam going to see the one nun once.
Yeah.
Like, why not do... And the minute Sam heard about him having a distinctive scent, that should have been at the front of her mind.
Yeah, no, you're not supposed to be distracted by this nuclear guy.
This nuclear guy who, as the nuclear guy says at the end, don't worry, I had never intended to hurt anybody. And you completely believe him. He was just going to kill those 3 people. He was never going to hurt her. He was never going to hurt any of the other hostages. Like, he wanted a hostage negotiator in to use to get him. What he really wanted was to get his brother down there so he could get the only 3 people he actually had a problem with. Yep. So yeah, the Jack stuff remains compelling. Very compelling.
Yep, very interesting.
Interesting to see where that's going. And, maybe towards the end of the season, because we're closing in on something here. It's getting tighter.
17, so
yeah, we got 5 more episodes. I'm very interested to see where it goes.
Yep.
For now, though, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's any profiling-related fiction you'd like us to check out, drop us a line at profilingcriminalminds@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you're listening on an app or podcatcher or watching this on YouTube, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. That's how new people find out about the show. We're going to be back here next week for the next 2 episodes, I believe 18 and 19 of season 1 of Profiler. But until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.
Have a good week.